WIBTA for not forgiving my brother-in-law's wife? About a year ago my husband and his brother got in a gnarly physical fight. My husband was visiting his parents, about 5 hours away from our home, and Bill and his wife live there as well. My Bill was talking nasty about me while drunk. He's an alcoholic and isn't even supposed to be drinking cause he's on probation. He was saying I'm a bitch and stole my husband from his family and how I hate the family cause I don't visit every month. I'm in college full-time as well as play a sport for my university, so I rarely have time to even see my own family. My husband told him to stop or leave. This made Bill super mad and he jumped my husband from behind and they started tussling. Eventually my husband knocked Bill off and locked him outside where he started yelling he was going to get his gun from the garage. I was on FaceTime with my husband for all of this, and as soon as I heard gun I called Bill's wife and told her to go home and contain her man. She said she didn't want to leave work for a common brother fight, and that's just how the last name boys fight. I have known my husband for a long time and been with him almost all of that time, and I have never seen/heard of a fight this bad before. My husband's nose ended up being broken after everything was said and done. My father-in-law luckily had locked his gun away in his own safe and my Bill didn't know where his gun was. So nothing bad other than my husband's broken nose happened. No one called the cops or anything, because if my husband has the cops called on him he will lose his state job. I don't know if I worded that right, but he can't have his name on a police report or something like that. The next day I got in a fight with Bill's wife because she wouldn't leave her minimum wage job at Del Taco to go calm down her husband, and the fight turned ugly fast. She was calling me names and saying pretty much the same stuff the Bill was the night before. Meaning, at least to me, that they talk about me. We have seen each other since this all happened. We mostly stay civil, but we don't talk and hang out like we used to. We used to be super tight. We have had a couple fights since then, especially when drunk, but they haven't been as bad as the big fight was. A few times she's tried fighting with me again, like trying to provoke me, but I wasn't drinking and didn't fall for it again. Within the past month or so she's requested to be my friend on all social media again, which I've accepted, but she keeps trying to talk to me. I don't know if I'm being oversensitive with her because I'm scared or if it's genuine. Comment. I think your Bill and his wife sound like not great people. Fair to call them AHS, I would say. Bill's behavior is all kinds of problematic. However, what was your sister-in-law really going to do? Wrestle a gun out of the hands of her drunk, violent husband? I think her attitude toward you sounds like it was dismissive of the situation, but I don't think bringing another person onto the scene to potentially get shot would have necessarily helped. It sounds like you probably have plenty to be upset with them about, but I don't think her failing to show up for a potential shooting is specifically the thing to hold against her. Your Bill is the major. He's the one who threatened to shoot your husband. Why are you friends on social media? Why do you keep seeing these people? They hate you. Bill is a literal criminal and almost murdered your husband. You wanted her to go confront a violent drunk looking for a gun? Are you out of your mind? I'd have told you to fuck off too. And yeah, your husband's family is messed up. If this is their normal, perhaps you should have even more distance than Bill is complaining about. It's not her responsibility and she shouldn't be blamed for choosing not to risk physical harm to herself. Stepping in during past incidents doesn't obligate her to put herself in danger in perpetuity. You have plenty of other options which you are choosing not to take because the consequences don't suit you: potential harm to career if you call the cops, seeing the parents less, or in a different location. Notice how all of those have consequences far less serious than being shot, and yet you and husband can opt out while blaming yourself for doing the same. Next story 2. This past summer, I went on a summer trip with a teen organization. On this trip, I had a situationship of sorts with another participant from the same state as me. We were out late one night and were engaged in some physical contact, and he asked if he could do something that I thought was a little weird, so I said no. It wasn't something extreme, his hands were already in place, all above clothes, but the action itself was weird. It was around 1 in the morning when it happened, so we were both tired, and he did it anyways. When it happened I didn't think much of it. It was honestly kind of funny. Everyone on our trip ended up finding out and we all made a joke of it. A few weeks later the situationship was over, but it was still a joke. I had also been in a fight with another person on my trip, let's call him Bob, 15M, for those few weeks, because he was trying to make me believe some things about the situation guy, let's call him John, that weren't true. I wanted to make peace with Bob for the final week of the trip, and he seemed to want to do the same. We agreed to have a talk during our next free time, but he decided to immediately tell me that a lot of people on our trip found me annoying and immature, they would all talk about me behind my back, everyone hated me, etc. I knew I shouldn't have believed him, but I was feeling really vulnerable and made the wrong choices. He ended up telling me that John called me mentally insane, said that he never liked me, and seemed to be proud of the weird thing he did. He then asked me if John asked if he could do it or if he just did it, which was when I realized that he asked and I said no. I got really upset after that, not finding the joke funny anymore, feeling like I had been used. Very quickly, Bob suggested that I go tell a staff member about what had happened. Before I was able to, my friend Haley suggested that I think before doing anything. Her advice was great, but I was in the wrong state of mind and ignored it. I went and told a staff member, and everyone found out. Instead of letting me explain, everyone began to ignore me, saying that I accused John of saying me, saying I did it for attention and that I'm a liar. I promise I never did any of that. When I went to staff, I explained exactly what happened, and said I used to think of it as a joke but then I didn't feel comfortable anymore, recounting what I had been told John said. John and I had a staff-mediated talk, and we discovered it was all a misunderstanding. Nobody got in trouble, but I could have gotten him in big trouble. I thought everything would go back to normal, but it didn't. My trip is over, and for the last week of it to now, most people I thought were my friends have iced me out completely. I had recognized my mistakes and tried to fix things, and it never seems to be enough. Am I the asshole? Edit, I forgot to mention, John and his best friend Kevin, also 16M, have blocked me on social media, John on messages as well. John knows the full truth but has allowed others to continue calling me a liar, and Kevin has even reached out to people we both know just to say I don't know if she said anything, but John didn't SAOC. She's a liar. Luckily he only reached out to one person, and it was actually the first person I told about the situation, but it's not his place. Comment. If you feel like you need to talk to someone you should. It's the staff member's duty to decide how to handle the information and that's how they decided to handle it. It sounds like you had a great outcome considering because you both got to talk about things. Bob isn't your friend. Don't trust Bob. His motivation isn't to help you but to instigate shit and make you feel horrible. It sounds like he did sexually assaulted you. Doing something sexual you said no to is assault even if it's not something you saw as a big deal in itself. Unfortunately, it's common for people to treat people who have been sexually assaulted this way, but you are certainly not an arsehole in any way. Next story 3. WIBTA if I told my sister that I don't think she is autistic? Note, if you saw this post before, it got deleted since it was my first time using the sub and I didn't know how to navigate it. In the rewrite, I will try to explain the situation better despite the word limit. I have an older sister who is in university. She told me a few months ago that she thinks she might be on the spectrum because she related to some TikTok videos on the subject. I assumed she did a lot more research before telling me, though. I am in a similar situation as her where I've suspected for years that I might be autistic myself. I did an awful lot of research, and psychologists have told me that I most likely am, but I was never diagnosed. One day, I asked her out of curiosity what traits she identified with, and she revealed that she didn't know many because she's only heard of autism through TikTok. I was surprised but offered to list some symptoms so she could tell me whether or not she related to it. It felt very superficial. It was almost as if she wasn't listening to what I was saying and was only answering things that she thought would favor a diagnosis her way. For example, I asked her if she had an easy time identifying and naming her emotions. She very excitedly said that she noticed she had an easier time than most people. I explained to her then what alexithymia is and brought up that it's very common in autistic people, and she immediately backtracked, saying that she was wrong and had a very hard time with these things. It only got worse over time. She started bringing it up in conversations a lot with the rest of our family, claiming that she related to some traits, some of them being having an internal monologue or lacking object permanence. Yep, TikTok again. She became really irritable about doing basic chores that she never had any problems with before, like laundry, or just cleaning up after herself, and pushes them for sometimes a week or more, but then blames me and our other siblings for slacking off when we don't do ours immediately. She's also been acting out dramatic meltdowns whenever we tell her something that even slightly displeases her. Also, she only started stimming after I told her what it was and tries to make it as noticeable as possible. I want to specify that it's not that I don't think she is autistic because she doesn't look or behave like it, it's her view of autism that bothers me and how she rejected from the start the possibility of any other alternative conditions that have similar symptoms to autism but are different nonetheless. I think she has something, but I don't think it's autism. Comment. It's not your place to dictate whether or not your sister is autistic. Even if her understanding comes from TikTok, she's allowed to explore her feelings. Who are you to gatekeep autism based on your own experiences? Let her figure it out on her own. Personally, find this hard to judge because you never really know what you do have or what other people have. I have heard ADHD traits are very similar to those on the spectrum. If she does have something, I think the best option here would be for her to go in and see someone about it. I would still support her through all of it. Going to go with nah here. Since sure, she didn't do much before, and suddenly doing all of these things, could be something else, or on the spectrum. I do kind of find it weird that she backtracked, I'm not really sure why. She could also just be seeking attention, but again, you don't know unless there's solid proof. You are not a professional. As much as I dislike TikTok despite misinformations, it has helped many people get a diagnosis for whatever they were going through. I'm diagnosed AUTID, I can tell most emotions, I don't stim. We are all different. She might just be seeking attention, but you're not really qualified to give a diagnosis, so it's best to just stay out of it. If you said that you didn't think she was autistic, you simply don't have the qualifications to diagnose her. However, you can tell her that until she gets an actual diagnosis there is no excuse for her behavior and you are unable to make accommodations for her. Basically get diagnosed or shut up. But I'm blunt that way, don't tell me you think you are something. Go out and get it confirmed and we can go from there. I'll be honest, I hate internet diagnosis. It has its good points but you have to put up with a lot of BS.